Hmm. A dinosaur or something else. So, half the animals from 65. Unlike those scary fellas, though, this one actually existed. It lived in the Triassic period, and we don't know what it is. This is Smok. It might be a dinosaur. It might be a Ryosuchid. It might be a Prestosuchid, an Ornithosuchid, a Pseudosuchian, or a dinosaur. I already said that. This is a prehistoric unsolved mystery, one of many that hail from the Triassic. Seriously, what were they smoking in the Triassic? Things got really weird there for a minute. So, let's dive in and go on the trail of this odd animal. Let's see if we can't unearth what Smok wawelski, our mystery animal of the day, really is. If I had the budget, I'd do it the same way they did in Walking with Caveman. But I don't, so we're doing it the no-budget way. So hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. If, like me, you enjoy paleo topics, then after you watch this video, go check out my videos on Auroran, Pyoraptor helicoprion, or Acrocanthosaurus, and more topics. I'll take you on trips throughout prehistory. They'll all be linked below. Like and subscribe if you enjoy paleo topics so that I know you want to see more of them, and let's get to the video. Enjoy! Smok was first found in Poland, hailing from the late Triassic period. We believe it lived for around 3 million years, from 208 to 205 million years ago. The animal is noteworthy for a few reasons. One is that it's big for a Triassic animal. Smok was larger than any other known predatory archosaur from the late Triassic or even the early Jurassic in that area of Europe. So, the first material of Smok that was found was part of a jawbone and the fragments of a skull. Well, part of a skull is better than no skull at all, so he has a one up on Auroran right now at least. Smok was first described in 2008 as a theropod dinosaur based off what parts of the brain case we had, as well as the frontal bone. These fossils were also thought to come from two individuals, which that is really interesting. And the animal was given the name the Dragon of Lissaweiss, in reference to a creature in local folklore from the area it was found in. Smok wawelski remains the only species in the Smok genus so far. Early on, Smok was thought to be the beginning of big things. Literally, it was thought that this was the earliest known ancestor to the Tyrannosaurus rex. More fossils were later found in 2009 and 2010. Now there's an interesting find which might be from Smok, or maybe something else. In the fossil layer above where Smok was found, so that means more recently in the past, the further down you go, the older the fossils get, a collection of 5 three-toed footprints were found. These are thought to be from a theropod dinosaur, but it is unknown if they belong to Smok because we don't have a fossilized foot of Smok. So, no foot for Smok, no skull for Auroran, and no body for helicoprion. Let's combine them and create the ultimate animal. If someone can draw what that abomination would look like, I will subscribe to you. For now, though, because we don't have a lot of fossils of Smok, I'm going to move on to the next section. So what did Smok look like? Or what do we think it looked like based on the fossils we have? Well, reconstructions vary depending on if the artist is drawing it as a dinosaur or as a Ryosuchid or as something else. But at an estimated 16 to 20 feet in length, Smok was the largest known carnivorous archosaur in Central Europe during the time it was alive. The skull alone was 20 to 24 inches long, so this was a large animal in the Triassic, larger than any other known theropod dinosaur or pseudosuchian living in Central Europe in the late Triassic period. Noteworthy features that show Smok as an archosaur include its serrated teeth, the contact between the jugal and the quadradigital, that is a scary word, the quadradigital bones at the back of the skull, a hole in the front of the eye socket, sometimes called the anterorbital fensta. I'm not a biologist, by the way, so these words were above me. Aside from all that, there's also specific bones in the upper jaw that tell us it is an archosaur as well. There is also a specific rounded projection on the upper part of the femur bone that is common to archosaurs. Smok also has these really long Indoraptor-like arms going on too. Also, I mentioned the brain case earlier, but let's bring it up again since skulls can tell us a lot about the animal, something that I've mentioned in other videos. Usually in cases where we don't have one, but it would have been very helpful if we did. The brain case of Smok has many advanced features for an animal at the time, something important that I'll touch on later in this video. But you should know that this is a sign that it might be a dinosaur because their brains were more complex than other archosaurs like Ryosuchids. A noteworthy feature is a funnel-shaped structure on the bottom of the brain case, which was formed by a rounded and very wide basis sphenoid bone, which is the bone located at the base of the skull. It is directly in front of the bone that contains the opening to where the brain stem connects to the spinal cord. In the skull, there is also a deep notch called the basis sphenoid recess, which cuts into the back of this other bone. Now, the reason we don't know if Smok is a dinosaur or part of the crocodile line of archosaurs is because it has several features that are shared with both lines. This is the unsolved mystery of this animal. I know it might look like a theropod dinosaur at a casual first glance, but honestly, we don't know what it is. Smok, what are you? I wish you could tell us. Fine, if you won't, we'll riddles in the dark this one out of you ourselves. Though our fossils of it are limited, here are a few examples of some of the features on it. The features on its bones that resemble theropod dinosaurs and hint at it being in that line of animals include the groove in the ilium bone, the uppermost part of the hip bone, which connects to the pelvis. Smok and known theropod dinosaurs also have an interior... Dear God, I'm not a biologist. Here we go, though. Trochanter on the femur. And a thing living theropods have, which Smok seems to share, are deep depressions of the basis sphenoids on the brain case. Now, onto evidence of it being a Ryosuchian. Smok has a triangular anterorbital phentenstra and a connection between the... These words are going to be the death of me at this rate. Ectopterygoid and jugal bones of the skull that is split into two projections. There is also a distinctive ridge on its hip. This ridge is a defining characteristic of Ryosuchids. It forms a buttress over the femur, and this allows these animals to have a pillar erect stance. It is called that due to how the femur is arranged. Now, we'll come back to the hip structure later in the video because hip structure on Triassic archosaurs is really important. Smok seems to be most likely either a Ryosuchian or theropod dinosaur, at least from what I see. I'm not a paleontologist, and as you can tell, I'm definitely not a biologist, but it also has features which seem to exclude it from likely being part of either of these archosaur family lines. An example being the way the teeth are organized. It's a special way, and it heavily implies it's not part of the early line of theropod dinosaurs, so I say again, Smok, what are you? You're the Frankenstein's monster of archosaurs. This mystery has gone unsolved since the late Triassic, and I don't think I'm going to solve it unless I go back to school, become a paleontologist, and dig up one of these guys myself. So even though we don't know much about this animal, or what it even is, we know a few vital things about it. First, it was a carnivore. We know this is true from the fossil teeth specimens. Smok was the largest predator in its environment, likely the apex predator of its little corner of the Triassic. Other carnivorous archosaurs it likely competed with were the neotheropod dinosaur, Liliensternus, and the Ryosuchids, Postosuchus and Pterosaurus. But these animals were smaller than Smok. Smok's size was unrivaled by other archosaurs until the Jurassic. Smok was even bigger than an actual dinosaur named after Godzilla, Gojirasaurus. This animal also likely had a bite force to be feared, as we have fossil evidence that it could crush bones. Smok was a generalized predator. It ate what it wanted: fish, any smaller animals like dicynodonts, non-mammalian therapsids, and Smok's ability to retain food in its digestive system varied depending on the amount of food available and the type of prey it was. There is also trace evidence that Smok swallowed its own broken teeth when feeding so it could grow new ones. That's pretty metal, actually. Loose tooth? Eat it! There was also a heavy amount of salt and bone marrow in Smok's diet from herbivores and other prey items, indicating that this was an important part of the animal's diet. These findings were published in 2019, so it's nice to see something recent in one of these videos. I'm sure you also remember that the Auroran bones we talked about in my video on it have been locked away in a vault for 20 years, so no new news there. Now we come to the question of the day. Is Smok an early dinosaur, a Rhyosukid, a Prestosuchid, or a Pseudosuchian? Well, let's look into each of these, and I'll give you some information on them all, and then we'll look into the mystery itself by getting up close and personal with Smok. Since the relation it shares with each of these has not been studied in depth, Smok is kinda just drifting in limbo. It could be any of these, so let's look into them all. First, the early dinosaur, which early dinosaur evolution is kind of fuzzy and still a very complicated topic anyway. The line of archosaurs that became dinosaurs goes way back, but dinosaurs as a group first appeared in the Middle Triassic period. They sprung up only about 20 million years after the Great Dying, which that is impressive. They really just sprung up at the perfect time to just take over the world. They really did. I've talked about this before, but basically every piece was just in the right spot for them. There has not been such a perfect alignment for any animal in the Cenozoic, except for maybe humans. But even then, it's not really the same because we learned how to make boats. The pieces weren't quite in the perfect spot for us like they were for the dinosaurs. Anyway, this is not the point of the video, so let's get back to it. So when dinosaurs appeared, they were successful, though they had small beginnings. Literally, they started small and were not the dominant animals they'd become, or even the dominant archosaurs in the Triassic. Their main competitors were, at the time, the much more successful archosaurs, including the Pseudosuchians and the Rhyosukhids. One of the earliest dinosaurs was Eoraptor, along with the larger Herrerasaurus. By the time Smok evolved, dinosaurs had diversified and gotten larger, leaving room for it to have been one of these dinosaurs which evolved at this time. A popular opinion online that I've seen is that people like to put it in the Pseudosuchia line, which is one of the two biggest divisions of the archosaur family, and this line led to the modern crocodiles of today. In fact, this line is known as the crocodilian line archosaurs, though, ironically, Pseudosuchia actually means false crocodiles. Modern crocodiles and alligators and caimans and all the animals in that line are the only living examples of animals from that line today. But since this seems to be a popular place for people to put Smok in, let's have a look at them next. Correcting my pronunciation, it's Pseudosuchia, by the way. The Pseudosuchians are a very diverse group. Some were even herbivores. Some were carnivores, and some were heavily armored, and some were bipedal, like Smok. Late Triassic Pseudosuchian Postosuchus, which looks kind of odd, I'm not gonna lie. What's up with your tail, dude? Why does it have a hump? Okay, that's weird. But it was bipedal, so like Smok, very nice. Anyway, Smok is theorized to have been part of the family of Ornithosuchid Pseudosuchia, which were animals that were mostly walking on 4 legs and not 2, but they could on 2 when needed. If it was part of this family, it would mean that Smok would be a closer relative to crocodiles instead of dinosaurs. Pseudosuchia were at their peak in the Middle to Late Triassic period. They were very successful and large animals which lived many different lifestyles, especially compared to their descendants today, the living lines of crocodiles. Many of the groups Smok might have been a part of went extinct at the end of the Triassic or in the early Jurassic. Next, let's talk about the Rhyasuchids. This group first appeared in the early Triassic, and they were common throughout the rest of the Triassic. Now, on screen is a reconstruction of a Postosuchus skeleton, a large carnivorous animal from this clade. A group thought to be part of this family of animals are also the Poposaurids, which actually had some two-legged carnivores in the group, so that might support Smok being part of this group of archosaurs. I touched on that a minute ago, but I bring it up again because Rhyasuchids themselves are part of the extended Pseudosuchia clade. Postosuchus is reconstructed as either walking on four legs or up on two. It kind of varies, but if it was fully bipedal, then that adds another point to the case of Smok being in this family. Rhyasuchids were large also, believed to be up to 20 feet long and more. Finally, let's talk about the Prestosuchids. They are part a polyphyletic grouping, which polyphyletic is an assemblage of mixed animals from a shared evolutionary origin. And they are the largest group of carnivorous archosaurs which lived throughout the Triassic period. Usually, they were the largest terrestrial apex predators in their region. Like the giant four-legged carnivore from 65, yeah, basically the Triassic period's equivalent to that monster. Though not that big. The longest was 23 feet long. Smok was 20 feet long, so right on the edge of the larger animals that the larger animals got to. And if you also remember, this is one of the groups it is theorized Smok might belong to. Also like Smok, this branch of animals reached into Europe, which, okay, really isn't that surprising since all the land masses were connected at this time. So I introduced you to them all. Now, what is Smok? Well, we know it's an archosaur. It has features thought to be unique to dinosaurs, such as the... Oh, here we go again with the complicated words. I want to go back to talking about missing ships. At least that's terminology I can pronounce. Okay. I was never good at biology if that's not obvious, but I love paleontology, so I suffer through it. Smok has features thought to be unique to dinosaurs, such as its supratemporal fossa, 3 sacral vertebrae, a groove extending into the ilum, and a few more features. But it also has features commonly found and often seen only with Rhyasuchids, including a triangular antorbital, flang-like palatal processes on the premaxillary and the maxilla, and a buttress on the lateral surface of the ilium, which is part of the hip bone, along with a specific ridge on the hip. Basically, this animal is a mix. And since I brought it up, one other thing I want to focus on is the hip bones, for a specific reason. You see, usually the hip can tell us if a Triassic period archosaur in question is a dinosaur, or a Prosuchid, or a Rhyasuchid, but no, not here. The hips are just a mix of them all on this animal, and the hips don't lie. In summary, Smok possesses features found in the crocodile and dinosaur line of archosaurs. It was one of the largest archosaurs of the time, but it doesn't have a trait that tells us where we should place it in the family tree. It gives paleontologists and people who just love this stuff like me a headache. So that's my answer to the mystery. We don't know. We don't know what Smok is. We need another specimen. Like a whole lot of other animals, too. Ideally, a well-preserved one. I'm sure there is one out there. But until we find it, we just have to speculate. So what do you think Smok is? Do you think it's a dinosaur? I'm doubtful. The thing about the Triassic, there are just several animals that look like dinosaurs that weren't. The Triassic had a lot of evolution going on, the Cambrian explosion kind of thing, because life was bouncing back after recovering from the Great Dying. But tell me where you would put it. I don't think we can really put it anywhere right now because it's just weird. In summary, it has features that could make it a dinosaur or even some part of the branch of the land crocodile family. If the footprints I mentioned earlier did in fact belong to Smok, then that would heavily support it being a dinosaur, as does its brain. It's more complex than what is often seen on the Ryosuchids, but then again, some of the bones in this animal also fit with it being a Ryosuchid over a dinosaur because they're often only seen in Ryosuchids. But again, for now, we just don't know. Smok is a mix, and we don't know where it fits on the family tree of its family. Really reminds me of Auroran, actually. So until we learn more, this is an unsolved Triassic mystery, and it will remain as such. Like I said, it's one of many, many animals that we need to find more fossils of because what we have is limited and can only tell us so much. Imagine for a moment if these fragmentary fossils turned out to be like part of a lost lineage of archosaurs that has not been preserved in the fossil record at all. That would be wild, but that is just pure speculation on my part. In all likelihood, it does fit in the dinosaur family tree or the Ryosuchid family tree somewhere. We just don't know where yet. I doubt it. I doubt that it's its own branch of archosaurs. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'm sorry for all the probably mispronounced biology terms. It's too early in the morning for me to be doing this, honestly. But I do hope you enjoyed. Maybe you had a good laugh at it. And if you did, go check out some of my other paleo documentaries. I've covered Auroran, Helicoprion, Dunkleosteus, Pyroraptor, Acrocanthosaurus, and Attasuchus, and other animals too. And I promise I didn't struggle with those as much, if at all. Okay, so that awkward silence is over. Go check out those videos if you like paleo topics, though, just like me, if you're passionate about it. I do put a lot of work into those videos, and yeah. Stay tuned for our next topic, by the way. We're going to be telling the story of a passenger airliner that was stolen about 20 years ago, and nothing of it has ever been seen since. So that's weird. Until then, though, have a good one, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. So the first material of Smok that was found was part of a jawbone and the fragments of a skull. Well, part of a skull is better than no skull at all, so he has a one-up on Auroran right now. Smok was first described in 2008 as a theropod dinosaur based off what parts of the brain case we had, as well as the frontal bone. These fossils were also thought to be from two individuals, which is really interesting. And it was given the name Dragon of Lissawais. Lissawais? It's a Polish name. Lissawais. The Dragon of Lissawais is his name. And the name comes from a referent. Okay.